On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, Keith and I talk about the ceiling for the Sixers for the upcoming campaign. What is it? We'll dive into it next right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game begins. What's up, D?
What's happening, man? How you doing?
Oh, I'm well. Yourself?
I'm good, man. No complaints at all as we get closer to September, except for that part. I will complain about that for sure. But we got to thank everybody for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On 76ers is free and available wherever you do get your podcasts, all platforms right here, Locked On YouTube. And I'm Devon Givens, 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia. Keith Pompey, that's my guy right there. So we got a lot to talk about from the ceiling for this basketball team as we get closer to the start of training camp. Also, Doc Rivers, expectations. Are they realistic? Are they realistic expectations for Doc Rivers for this upcoming season? We'll dive into that. And also a free agent that we weren't sure was going to be able to play basketball this year. Things may have improved for him where he might be able to play basketball this season. Montrezl Harrell will talk about what the Sixers should do, if any, as far as interest with the backup big man. We'll dive into it all, but first, Keith, we do need to start with the ceiling for this basketball team and what is it. So as I look at things with them, the ceiling, I think, is that right now, as it stands, the Eastern Conference Finals. I think that's what the ceiling is, with the opportunity of getting to the NBA Finals, of course. But I just reserve the right a little bit just because of the minor questions that we might have with this basketball team from the James Harden aspect of it, where he fits in with the offense. Do we get a better showing? He still had decent numbers a year ago. You talked about him having, the most pressure on him this upcoming year. Joel Embiid, can he sustain and play at this all NBA level for yet another year? Can Tyrese Maxey take that leap? And when we talk about the depth, is it real? So for me right now, I say the ceiling at this moment is the Eastern Conference Finals. They are that good. I think they're a top 3 team, and they can get to the Eastern Conference Finals facing one of those two teams in Boston and Milwaukee. Obviously, we want to see if they can get to the NBA Finals, but for right now, it starts there for me. How about you?
I don't think that they'll get to the Eastern Conference Finals right now. When I look at Boston, I look at Milwaukee, to me, they are, and then Brooklyn. I mean, they are right now, and there are 3 teams that are better than the Sixers. I mean, I think that unless, some things change, I think that there are going to be a lot of disappointed fans again this season. I look at them as a second-round team. Now, again, we're basing everything off of just looking at roster, the way rosters are currently constructed. It could change. People could get injured. James Harden could find the fountain of youth, so to speak. But when I'm looking at this Sixers team right now, unfortunately for people, I see another second-round exit. I don't see anyone who is better than Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I don't see anyone on the 76ers team who can stop the Greek Freak. I look at Chris Middleton. And when I see the Brooklyn Nets, I think the thing that holds them back is probably chemistry. Or guys, the unknown. If guys get upset and get frustrated and start saying they want out there again. Right now they have an all-star squad and their big 3 and Ben Simmons, Kevin Tatum, and Kyrie Irving. I just don't see the Sixers being better than any of those 3 teams. So I would have to say second round exit.
Okay, and look, and it's fair. Again, they've left themselves to these questions. So Absolutely, and I don't think there's a wrong answer, of course, until we find out actually where they are, what they do, and how they go about it. So, I look at it and I say that is fair. But guess what? That's not good enough for them to have a second round exit right now. Yet again, just simply not good enough for this basketball team the way they've been put together. And I think it's fair to say that too. It has 5 years, playoffs. 4 second-round exits, the one in the bubble, which was a first-round exit, not a complete team because Ben Simmons was out. It all factors in. And right now with this basketball team, a second-round exit is unacceptable for the squad. It doesn't matter how good the other teams are. It's about what they are, what they could be. And another second-round exit would be very, very disappointing for this basketball team. So, look, we'll see what the other people have to say to us on the comment section, everywhere that you all comment. But second round Eastern Conference for me, second round for Keith. What do you guys think? Next up, we got to talk about Doc Rivers, though. He's going to be the one that's heading the charge here for this team yet again for the third year. And what expectations are there for him, and how realistic are they for the Sixers head coach? We'll dive into that next. Doc Rivers next, right here, Locked On 76ers.
Before we get into that, let's talk about BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports information this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchup, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week game. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and score. The fastest and easiest way to check in on your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions, right? Bet online, where the game starts. Do it today, people. Definitely do it today.
Absolutely. Make sure you do it today. And welcome back. And thank you all for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Keith, last podcast episode that we had, we discussed the Doc Rivers angle of it. You chose James Harden. I chose Doc Rivers as far as the pressure. And I think having a lot of that, most of that on the season for him. And we wanted to expound on that a little bit more, just because of we've talked Harden so much during this offseason. And look at Doc Rivers a little bit here as we approach September. We're getting ready for the start of camp, media day, training camp, and all at the end of the month. But what are the realistic expectations for Doc Rivers? Year 3, as we said, supposed to come in and get this team past what Brett Brown did. Hasn't yet done that. Has been a number 1 seed, knocked off in the second round against the Atlanta Hawks. So going into year number 3, Keith, what do you say the realistic expectations are for him? And are they fair? Not only from you, but also what you hear from the fan base too.
I mean, it's weird because, like I told you, I feel like that these 3 teams are better than the 76ers. But I also feel like the expectation for Doc Rivers is to get the Sixers out of the second round. So when you look at it, it's kind of like, whoa, he got a tough job right now. A lot has to happen. I mean, regardless, in the past, I always felt like that Sixers team 2 years ago wasn't as good as their number 1 seed, right? And we saw how that ended with Ben Simmons. I felt like last year, Doc Rivers had to go through a lot of difficulties with dealing with the Ben Simmons not wanting to play. Then you get in James Harden. Harden wasn't the player that everybody thought he was going to be. But now I feel like it's one of those things where, you know what? They made some adjustments. Even though your team isn't as good as the other ones, you're still going to be looked upon of, if you don't get them out the second round, dude, you got to go. You know what I mean? So I feel like, yes, while people are saying, look, this is one of the greatest coaches record-wise in the history of the NBA. He won an NBA championship. He needs to get this team out the second. And I think it's tougher than what people think. I think is when you look at it, unfortunately, you have Joel Embiid, you have James Harden, two big name players. They're going to play 34 games on national TV. So it's a team that everybody wants to see. So when you look at that, the expectations for that, you say they are realistic. But if you're going to be real with yourself, this team isn't as good as the other ones. So I would have to say they're a little bit unrealistic right now based on the current roster that they have.
I'll go back to what I said in the last episode where, this pressure is on him. So whether we feel like the team is good enough and all, it's his job to get them to that next level, to pull that extra thing out of them, especially when you have two all-star players on your squad and James Harden and Joel Embiid. One is an MVP candidate. And I understand that you have a budding star, but not at that level just yet in Tyrese Maxey. You have a good squad overall. So I think the expectations are fair for Doc Rivers coming into year number 3, just simply because this is what you were hired for. This is what you are paid the big bucks for, to come in and get this team to that level, Keith. And he certainly has to do so. Or as you mentioned, there's going to be a lot of conversation about his job security at the end of the season. So as you said, if you don't think they're ready to beat the Milwaukee Bucks or the Boston Celtics, I don't know if he survives if they get knocked out in the second round. So if you look at let's say they finish in the top 3 in the East in the standings, and they are the 3rd seed, and they face either one of those two teams in the second round. Even if you get to a 7-game series, a 7th game against them on the road and take them to the wire and lose, I don't know, man. I don't know. That's 3 years in a row, again, that you're knocked out in the second round. And then we start to check off each team in the Eastern Conference that they've lost to, from Atlanta, Boston in the past, Toronto, Miami, and let's just say it's Milwaukee this time around. We're now putting together the top teams in the East that they've fallen to in the playoffs, and that just cannot happen again. So I think that the expectations are warranted for Doc Rivers. They are real. He knows it. He knows that they're real, and now he has a good team that we think at least has enough depth where he can make some changes with the team on the fly of where they could potentially what lineup changes that he can make, putting together if he can feel like he can go 9 or 10 deep with this group. So I think they're real. I think they're warranted, and he's definitely on watch this season, not only from the Sixers front office most likely, but also from the fan base in general. So that's where I stand, man. And with that, and we continue to talk about, as I just said, 9, 10 deep. That 10th is probably Paul Reed as the backup for Joel Embiid. There was one name that we talked about that looks like he's signing with the Brooklyn Nets. We'll tell you who that is on the other side. And yet another who would have likely been snatched up off of the free agent list a little sooner if it weren't for some legal issues. We'll talk about Montrezl Harrell next, the latest on him, according to reports, and why the Sixers should at least do their homework on Montrezl Harrell. Next, right here, Locked On 76ers. Welcome back to Locked On 76ers. That's Keith Pompey. I'm Devon Given. So Montrezl Harrell, one of the better free agent big men this offseason, and we finally got a little bit of an update on his status this season, or at least for right now, where things may have changed. Earlier in the summer, he was picked up for marijuana issues, trafficking, if you will, driving with marijuana in his car. And I think a lot of teams just simply decided to stay away until they had a clearer answer, a clearer picture on what the status was of him for this upcoming season. So according to Adrian Wojnarowski, Keith, Montrezl Harrell had felony charges of marijuana trafficking reduced to a misdemeanor in court today. And charges will be expunged from his record after 12 months if he gets into no further legal trouble. He continues, the change in Harrell's legal status should start to clarify where he lands in free agency for this upcoming season. Keith, I didn't know if he was going to play basketball this season because of that. Or if we remember, I don't remember the number, but I just remember saying, "Dag, that much?" when it came to the marijuana that he was allegedly picked up with. That man, I just thought that it was going to be really tough for a team to take a chance on him. But now that it is dropped down to a misdemeanor and is no longer a felony, there are going to be a lot of teams that I think are going to look past it and look after and see if they can maybe acquire him to their roster because he is a good big man in this league, and especially at a backup role. I think the 76ers should do their homework, but I'm not saying they should go out there and sign him, even though I think they need to add a veteran big man to this roster. We talked about Markieff Morris. Looks like he's going to the Brooklyn Nets, so he's off the table. Now, Montrezl Harrell, arguably the best big man out there as far as the reserves go, backup big men. I think they should do their homework. I'm not necessarily saying they should go and sign him, though.
Yeah, the funny thing about Montrezl Harrell is, like, a lot of people are like, well, what's his, what's his background? Like, we know he played for the Clippers and we know he played for the Lakers, but a lot of people don't realize he got his start with the Houston Rockets. Like, he was drafted by the Rockets with the 32nd overall pick in the 2015 draft. The Rockets then traded him on June 28th, 2017. With Patrick Beverly, Sam Deckard, a couple other guys, right? Even Lou Will, right? To the Clippers, right? For Chris Paul. So he was a part of that one. So there is some familiarity with him. Yeah. And, so they know him. The thing is, it's just, how is he going to fit? And how is he going to enjoy his role? Now, we know that him and Joel got into it a little bit last season during one game, but you know what? You throw that stuff out the window. Absolutely. Like, that's just, banter during the game, guys getting into it and stuff like that. But to me is, you got to understand, like, A, is he going to be willing to take the minimum?
Yeah.
And B, like, do you think he's that guy that's going to help you get out of the second round? To help you, is he a piece that can help you beat Milwaukee, beat Brooklyn, and beat Boston? So if I'm the Sixers, I think you got to think long and hard about that. But you also, like, the interesting thing is that he was already a part of that locker room with James Harden, right? He was already a part of the locker room with Tobias Harris. Now the thing is,
and PJ Tucker, right? Was PJ Tucker there?
I'm not sure if PJ was there in 2000.
Toronto, yeah.
But the thing is, the thing is like, you just got to do a nice hard look and see it. I mean, because let's face it, if he would replace a guy like Paul Reed, so you got to think: are you interested in continuing to grow Paul Reed, or are you interested in going with the quick hit now and taking Montrezl Harrell's fit?
Well, they are certainly in win now mode, so it would seem that would be that type of move. Nothing against Paul Reed. It's just simply, when we talk about where they are right now, they are certainly in win now mode.
Mm-hmm. And is he willing? Like, I don't know because when you have like this type of, you got in trouble, there may be some teams that's going to throw money at you, but I don't know, what the rate is for him, because of that. Like, if it wasn't that incident, I would say, well, yeah, it'll probably get signed and paid by someone. But to me, it's one of those things you just want to know, what the rate is. But he would booster their bench big time.
Oh, he would. And here's the thing too. I don't know how much leverage he and his agent would have. I don't disagree with you that there may be another team that would throw some money at him. But I also feel like when teams look at him and they maybe do some more background on him, they may all just look at it and say, look, right now you don't have much of a choice but to take this minimum and hit the free agent market next year to show us that you are this guy that's no longer, it's not going to get yourself in any more problematic situations where the legal stuff comes into play. So he might be in for a rude awakening here where he might only get the league minimum for this upcoming season because it is so late and because he is desperate to play. If he is, what's his motivation? Is it the money or is it the situation in winning? And that's where it comes in for me. And that's where I think the Sixers would have to do their due diligence, just like the rest of the NBA, if they would go to look at him. Now, Clippers, Charlotte this past year, Washington also, I think it might tell us a lot if none of those teams go after him again, mainly Washington and Charlotte, because he just left those situations. If they don't go after him, we don't hear anything about them trying to re-sign him. What does that tell you about him? So
yeah, it's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But I also think the Charlotte is in a bad spot when you think of Miles Bridges and this and that, and it's kind of like, you know what I mean. One
and
dude,
Harrell. So you might want to stay with
Harrell. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like they might want to stay away from it. And when I'm talking about money, throwing money at them, I'm not saying like $8 million. I'm just saying maybe 5 or something like that. Yeah,
I understand. Yeah, but guess what? He might only get 2 or 1 ever for that veteran league minimum, just because everybody's like, look, man, we can't take this chance. We need you to show us that you are committed and dedicated to what we are doing and trying to win. And maybe the Sixers are one of those teams. Maybe his former boss and Daryl Morey and Tad Brown, maybe they take a look and talk to Embiid and Harden and see how they feel about it. And maybe they take a peek. You do your homework. You absolutely do your homework. That's your job. But you just move cautiously on this one. Because, again, what is his motivation at the end of the day? You hope it's winning. Keith, that'll do it for us, man. We'll be back on Friday. We got to thank everybody for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Now, make your second listen Locked On NBA, where Locked On experts are covering the biggest stories around the league every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Keith, where can they find this?
Like my man D just said, wherever you can get your podcast, you could go, you get the Locked On NBA, but you can also get the Locked On 76ers podcast. You can subscribe there. Also, if you want to get this YouTube channel, you go to YouTube, you do the Locked On 76ers podcast, log on to that. And then what happens is you'll see that Liberty Bell. Click on that Liberty Bell and you become one of our newest subscribers, right? But also you can follow my man D on 97.5 FM in Philadelphia, right? You go he has from 6 to 10 this week. He's going to be doing his own show. He's all over though, but he's going to do his own show from 6 to 10
actually 7 to 10 tonight.
See to me all over.
And Thursday and Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the midday show.
Okay, so he's going to do that, but make sure you check him out. And then you can also follow him on Twitter at DevonG975. You can follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. From a day job, I'm on vacay until September the 12th.
We're in September, folks. Keith is coming back.
Coming back, yeah. It's like, whoa. Now maybe I need to do something. But anyway, so I'm on vacay right now. But you could go to Enquirer.com and you can read the Enquirer coverage of the Sixers and the other sports as well.
Absolutely. Well, listen, man. Thanks as always. Always fun talking some basketball with you. And I'll talk to you on Friday, man.
All right, bro. All right, peace.